Thank you for joining us today. I'm Rich Savage with the Red Hat team at Carahsoft, and we're sitting down today with Chuck Svododa, the lead transformational specialist with Red Hat, to talk about the role containers play in IT modernization. Chuck, to get us started, give us your definition of containers.
So containers are a standardized packaging of apps, databases, whatever you could think of, that are portable, immutable, and provide isolation from each other. A lot of ways I like to think of containers as kind of like the new school RPM for the cloud that can really run anywhere and provides a homogeneous operational experience, at least on the outside. One thing that's important to understand, because I think there's a lot of confusion on it, containers are not an evolution of or a replacement for VMs in a lot of cases. Because the UX is so different between a VM and a container, you really need to treat them a bit differently. And that's actually where I think a lot of folks get themselves into trouble, which is why I talk a lot about that. I want to make sure that we bring it up directly. But Red Hat can help you with that.
In your view, what is the difference between the virtual machine experience and the container experience?
Well, if you've heard of the comparison of VMs to containers of pets versus cattle, is that a VM is traditionally very stateful, very persistent. Operators brag about how long their VMs stand up, whereas containers are supposed to be very ephemeral. They can spin up and spin down whenever they want, right? With no interruption to continuity, with no interruption to service or anything like that. Let's be honest, it's a gross oversimplification, but that's a big piece of it. And then so when you're building applications or services to go in a container versus in a VM, there's a lot of operational and development concerns taken into account. One great one that I always bring up is, configuration specifically of endpoints and things like that. Like hard-coded IP addresses, which is bad practice in general. But those absolutely do not fly in a containerized world, right? And again, there's many more that Red Hat can help you work through, but that's a huge difference, one that comes top of mind every time as I explain to a customer.
What are some new and interesting facts around containers?
So containers have traditionally been thought of, useful for rather, cloud-native web applications, right? So think of like Node.js apps or something like that, right? Kind of greenfield development. Where we're kind of going into now is as I really kind of think about a Gartner hype cycle, we're kind of coming out of the trough of disillusionment, right? And we're now applying, because those cloud native apps are so few in number compared to the larger swaths of use cases, such as high performance computing applications, applications that need to use GPU, stateful applications and services like databases and message queues and things like that. Edge computing, which is a really interesting use case for containerization. And then finally, we do actually understand that, VMs will have a place in infrastructure for quite some time longer. Well, containers are actually a great way to run VMs, traditional VMs. So you get the management aspect of, or the benefits of a management aspect around a single pane of glass or unified control plane for all your containers and your VMs. So just run them all the same, basically.
From your experience, what is the current state of public sector IT modernization?
Sure. So I think in the simplest way I can say that is we're just scratching the surface. A lot of the conversations I'm in start with, hey, we want to adopt containers, which I'll be the first to tell you, and I'll probably say it part of this podcast a few times, that containers by themselves really don't get you anywhere unless you modernize your methods and practices around the same. So I think a good swath of public sector is still just focusing on, hey, let's put something in a container and call it modernized, right? There are quite a few agencies out there, particularly in DoD and some of the civilian like USCIS, that are much further and understand that true modernization, not only building new applications better, but modernizing existing legacy through the use of containers as a tool is the right way to go about it. I think we have not fully rounded the corner, though. There's still so much more to do. and we're still a long ways about it. But it's a very exciting journey. So there's a lot of opportunity for agencies out there to do what they need to do to get to truly modernize and do things the right or new way.
Okay, so how can containers help with IT modernization?